We're diving deep into the most fascinating and controversial topics of our time. UFOs. Recent disclosures suggest the government may have been recovering unknown craft for decades, keeping their technology hidden from the public eye. And behind closed doors, reverse engineering the alien tech to push our advancements far beyond what we thought possible. Join us as we unravel the layers of secrecy, exploring how government programs may be bridging our technology with theirs. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see the future. In 1997, after 25 years of silence, David Adair, a globally respected expert in space technology spin-off applications for industrial and commercial sectors, made a groundbreaking revelation. He recounted astonishing experiences from 1971 at Groom Lake, where he encountered an otherworldly engine, interacted with Department of Defense agents, and crossed paths with Air Force General Curtis LeMay. Watch the following clip as we set the stage for this video.
So we got on the plane, and when we got there, they were right. There were twin 10,000-foot runways there and hangars and a 42,000-acre Air Force base called Groom Lake, and it wasn't on any of the maps I was working with at the time. So my rocket was down on the south end of the field at the end of the runways, and you could see the parachutes bellowing in the wind, and we landed and got out. And I was assuming we were going to go look at my rocket right then. No, we got in golf carts and rode to this center hangar, which was a very low, flat type hangar, but extremely large inside, size of about 4 football fields. So we pull in there and stop in these little golf carts, and we're just sitting there, and I'm going, well, that hangar's empty. I thought, this is interesting, you know. And then in a few minutes, little yellow and red lights came on flashing, and then out of the ground, or out of the floor, come these little rails with chains on them. And they came up around all the doorways, and then the entire floor dropped out from under us. It's an elevator. We went down about 20 stories, and what was interesting about this elevator is normally you have chains that drops these things. These huge worm screws were lowering the platform down, which allows it to carry extreme weight. When we got down there, there was a lot of various aircraft and workshops and offices and such that was off of the main bay. And then off of the main bay were smaller but still rather large work bays. And in the work bays, we went down to one that had something sitting in one of the big workshops. So we went and they opened the doors, we went inside, and the room was lit up like if you ever seen a car sitting in a paint booth. You have horizontal lights running the whole length of the room, and they arc like a rainbow all the way over. The reason being, like in a paint booth, it casts no shadows. So if you're spraying a car, if you see a run and your shadow's hiding it, you'll put a run in the car. So this was the same reason. It's a good laboratory to do it that way. That means that it's casting no shadows, so whatever you're working on, you can see it without being interfering with the light. And that was the first thing that's different about the room. They pulled the big covers off this thing, and it was interesting. It's an engine that's about the size of a school bus. And this engine is pretty much a much larger version of the thing I built. It's also an electric magnetic fusion containment engine, but it is sophisticated and it is powerful. I would have to compare mine to it. Would be like I had a Model A and this thing was a Ferrari. I mean, it's just a tremendous, powerful difference, but we both were of the same engine breed. And this one had been damaged right in the center of the core. In the type of configurations we build, we have dual particle accelerators that cause the fusion reaction. Right in that center of these accelerators is an area that I call the eye of the hurricane, and it's like an infinity pattern, figure 8, and right in the center, it's quiet there on a matter of conversion area. So then this particular engine, was a hole there about 4 feet in diameter, and that was the first thing I noticed. They asked me to look at it and describe to them how I thought the thing functioned. And I asked them, you know, how come I'm telling you about your engine? And they said that the engine was recovered in a project they was working with, and they wasn't sure how everything functioned on it, and personnel that were available that work on that was not available anymore. I asked them, can I walk up to it? They said, sure. As a matter of fact, you can climb on it if you want. So I got up to the engine, and then something really unusual about the engine, other than the design, the alloys itself, just the sheen and color, looked like iridescent color, like when you hold a CD disc to the sun and you see the rainbow. Imagine those kind of colors covering this entire engine and glowing like that. It's really pretty. The color of the engine was unlike any metal or alloy I was ever familiar with. And when I walked to the engine, there was a shadow on the engine. Now, I just told you that the rooms were built where you couldn't have shadows. When I stuck my arm out to it, there was a shadow on the engine, but right on the table there was no shadow. So it's not a light casting the shadow on the engine. The engine is picking up radiation off my body. So I back away from it, the shadow dissipates. When I walk back up, it's back on. And so when I put my hands on the engine to pull myself up on it, that's where it's interesting, because the alloys in some places were so thin it was translucent. You could see through it like a sheet of amber. So when I laid my hands on it, this really interesting swirl pattern would come off wherever my skin was touching, and they would swirl out through the metal, going out through the alloy. And I didn't know of any metal that could do that. So I thought, wow, this thing is heat sensitive. It's picking up my body heat waves like that. So when I crawled, and they were really neat looking, smooth type wave flows coming off my hands. So I pulled myself up on the engine and started walking over it, and it was huge. It was radically different than mine because it was just so much of a different design. And the way they ran the fusion flows and the way you would run fuel in a fuel line of an engine, this thing was totally different. There was no wiring. Now my engine was covered with miles of wiring, so I could get all the firing orders right toward the cyclotrons, the particle accelerators. Did you
immediately know that it was alien at that time?
I suspected when I put my hands on it, it felt so different. It felt like a frog belly. If you ever, I don't know if people play frog bellies, but I did. It looked wet, but it wasn't wet. It's just so slick looking, but it wasn't slick. And it was just amazing, but also had such a texture, and as soon as you touched it, it was cold in the air-conditioned well in the facility, but the minute you touched the metal, it became your temperature instantly. I don't know of any alloys that can do that. So I started going, oh, this may not be from around here. So I'm walking down the engine, and I go up to where the main core cells are in the particle accelerators. There's a hole blown out there, and I step down into it just to get a better look. Now, at this point of view, I'm down in the hole in the engine, and the walls are real smooth. They're so smooth, the blast, these temperatures like that engine of mine, they run at 100 million degrees centigrade. You work with plasma physics. So when the field dropped down, this engine's metals were exposed to that kind of temperature, vaporized. But as soon as it vaporized at that particular point, fail-safe, it shut the engine off. All this probably occurred in a nanosecond, a billionth of a second. So the blast only irradiated out to about 4 feet in diameter and stopped. What was interesting is the way the engine's metal was. Whenever there's torn places, you could rub your hands over the torn areas that are jagged, but they wouldn't cut you because they're so smooth. It's more like flesh being torn rather than metal. Well, when I bend down to get off the engine, I put my hands back on the engine. Something interesting. Instead of the nice smooth wave lines, they would now look like small tornadoes coming off all my fingertips, moving through the metal. And I pulled my hands back, put them back on. There they were, but they were starting to calm down a little bit. And then I realized what this thing was. They grabbed hold of me, the Air Force guys did. We got back in the golf cart and we were riding back up to the surface. And I was sitting there thinking, I just realized what this engine is. It's a symbiotic engine. The engine is alive. It is an engine that's capable. The reason we couldn't figure out the firing order is that the tubing that was cascading all over its body looked like the same pattern you would have from a brainstem of a neurosynaptic ordering firing order. So what's happening is when the pilots sit down in their seats, their thought waves drive the engine. When I first touched the engine, I was curious and awed by it. The wavelengths were smooth off my fingers. When I was getting down from it, I was totally angry. The engine was not picking up radiation heat waves, it was picking up mental fault energy. That engine is capable of a symbiotic relationship with the pilots.
Did you tell them that?
I didn't tell them squat. That's why they couldn't figure out the firing order. They said there was no wiring or circuitry. No, the pilots' brains are the wiring and the circuitry. The engine needs them in order to do all of its functions. In return, the pilots know exactly what the engine feels and how the spacecraft feels. The entire craft is probably symbiotic. Now, before you sit there and blow this off like it's just a bunch of science fiction, let me bring you up to date here to current events. I just left Princeton University. There's a Dr. John up there, Robert John, and he runs the Pear Research Institute. They have a contract from McDonnell Douglas, you ever heard of them? Small aerospace company, to build mental shielding for firing systems on the new F-22 fighters. So people go, what's that got to do with anything? Pilot comes home at night, catches his wife in bed with another man. He's having a bad day. He's now got to go fight a fighter that is so sensitive. When he straps on his helmet, just like the Apache helicopter, you turn your head this way, the gun mounts follow your head. This firing system now links to your brain. Foxfire, Clint Eastwood. Where do you think the Hollywood's getting their ideas? McDonnell Douglas is under construction building a symbiotic relationship firing control system.
Ben shared a slide set of about 40 slides of different things, starting with the U-2 spy plane, going all the way up to the stealth fighter at that time, mentioning that he couldn't talk about the other secret stuff. But when he ended his talk, he had a slide of a black disc zipping off into outer space. And he ended his talk with these words: "We now have the technology to take ET home." And we asked him questions about it. What did you mean when you said we have the technology to take ET home? Ben shared three major things that I think are worthy of research by researchers worldwide at this point in time. The first was we've somehow figured out how to do interstellar travel already. It's known. The second point he made was that there was an error in the equations. My suspicion is it's probably Maxwell's equations for electromagnetic theory. The third thing he said was, how does ESP work? And I was really kind of startled because I didn't know what to say. But I blurted out, I don't know, all points in time and space are connected. And he looked me back in the eye and he said, that's how it works.
Operation Fishbowl, a sub-program of Operation Dominic, aimed to test high-altitude nuclear detonations during the Cold War. On October 25, 1962, around midnight, a specific test named Bluegill Triple Prime involved detonating a high-energy X-ray nuclear weapon, the X-1. This powerful blast reportedly struck an unidentified flying object, bringing it down from the sky. Just days later, instrumented pods were deployed from parachutes around the blast to measure the radiation levels, and in the deck logs of one of the three ships sent to recover them, the USS Safeguard found unusual, spherical debris of unknown origin. And when attempting to retrieve this debris, the ship lost complete power.
There is a document that will be entered into the congressional record today. The original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation, 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
Mr. Elizondo, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers, and in other cases they seem to I came across an email where the word "stalked" was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
In our previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is it's an older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
Over the past several decades, government programs have allegedly pursued an extensive, highly classified effort to recover and analyze unidentified flying objects, UFOs, that have been discovered or crashed. According to multiple insiders and whistleblowers, these UFOs are secretly transported to remote, secure facilities, away from public and official scrutiny, where teams of top scientists and engineers work on reverse engineering their advanced technologies. The breakthroughs derived from these endeavors reportedly influence our own material sciences and contribute to select technological advancements, albeit under the radar, hidden from the broader scientific community. The claims suggest that the UFOs aren't the only extraordinary finds in these incidents. In some cases, biologics have reportedly been recovered near or within the wreckage of these crafts. Witness accounts describe these entities as non-human beings, often termed greys due to their distinct appearance. Contrary to popular notions of them being organic life forms, some sources within the programs speculate that these beings are actually sophisticated, biosynthetic constructs, biological user interfaces engineered by an intelligence far more advanced than our own. It is posited that these greys may act as remote-controlled drones, operated by an extraterrestrial intelligence that may be stationed in hidden bases on or around Earth. One of the most remarkable aspects of these reports is the description of a symbiotic relationship between the greys and their craft. In this relationship, the entities and the technology appear to merge, with the beings serving as both pilots and integral components of the spacecraft's functionality. This integration suggests a level of technological sophistication that allows biological and mechanical systems to work seamlessly as one, a concept that remains largely speculative within human science. Critically, it is believed by some insiders that this technology and its potential applications are deliberately suppressed. The entities or intelligence that control these beings may be involved in slowing humanity's progress toward achieving similar technological capabilities. Whether through covert manipulation or indirect influence, this interference is seen as a way to maintain an advantage, ensuring that such advanced technology remains out of human hands. While official evidence supporting these claims is scarce and highly classified, witness testimony and certain leaked documents continue to suggest that such programs are real.